Okay, this is a story about Julie. Now, Julie is an employee here at the university, and Julie started work here in one of the buildings. I'm not going to tell you which one yet. But when she started work, about the first week in, she started realizing that the place she was working in probably wasn't, normal. And what happened was one day she came in, and the picture that was hanging on the wall by the door had somehow moved itself, and it was down on the floor this time, and it was replaced by a photograph of a lady. Now, this lady was an older woman. She had graying hair. She had glasses. She was dressed in like 1920s style, 1915, 20s. She didn't pay any attention to it. She thought maybe, this was just something the maintenance guys did. So she went around to her office, and she sat down at her desk. She starts doing her job. And when she's sitting there at her desk, her back is to the window. And she's facing the door of her office. And off to the left, there's a storage closet. Now, she's sitting there at her desk. She feels this draft come up behind her neck. And she's thinking, the air conditioning must be on. She said, I'm freezing. I want to turn that off. And she gets up to turn the air conditioning off. And she realizes, wait, it's February. The air conditioning is not on. And she turns around and sees that the storage closet door has come open on its own. And she thinks, it's probably just the latch was loose and it just came open because of the gravity. So she goes and she shuts the door again, latches it really good, goes back to work. Well, then she looks around again because the draft starts blowing her hair one more time, and she notices the door has come open on its own one more time. And she's like, all right, something's going on here that I don't quite understand. So she gets up from her desk and goes downstairs to get some of her coworkers. And they go upstairs with her. All the time, the two of them are just kind of giving each other this look like she doesn't know what's going on. So the guy who's with her goes over to the storage closet, and he's going toward the door, and he goes to shut it on his own, but the door closes itself before he gets to it. Now, the three of them just kind of give each other a look like, what was that? And they head out of the office, and they go back downstairs, and the three of them talk among themselves because the lady who just started working, Julie, is frantic. She doesn't know what's going on. So they say, okay, we'll take you out for an early lunch, and we'll explain all this to you as we're eating. So they take her to Hatfields, down here in the bottom of the lair, because, it's prime real estate for eating. You've got to have your Hatfields every day. Had to give you all a shout out. So when they're in Hatfields, the ladies start explaining to her the whole story behind Elizabeth. And they say, Elizabeth is the one who has shown herself to you today. And they're like, who's Elizabeth? They said, well, Elizabeth was the headmistress of Woodburn Academy. And Woodburn Academy was the school for girls that was on the site of where Woodburn Hall stands today. Now, Woodburn Academy was founded for the purpose of educating young people in West Virginia, and no one was a stronger proponent of education than Elizabeth Moore. Now, Elizabeth was such a strong advocate of women's education and such a strong supporter of her school that even when it was faced with war, she did not leave the school. When the Confederate Army raided Morgantown in 1863, Elizabeth said, I am not leaving my girls to face down that army. So she called the cook up from the kitchen. She said, you get the china, you get the silver, you get the lace tablecloths, and you make as much good food as you can in the next 15 minutes. As a cook myself, I know that's not much. But they laid out a spread for that army, and when they showed up at the door with torches, ready to burn the place down, Elizabeth served them tea. And that is what saved Woodburn Academy from being burned in the Civil War. Now, many years later, when the university was founded in 1867, they decided they were going to build a recreation hall for the women at the university. So what they did was they built a pool, and they built a balcony, and they built this beautiful lounge, and they laid it out with all sorts of antique furniture, which at the time was first-rate, modern, but now it's antique. And they put a portrait of her right by the door of the building. And that is Elizabeth. And Julie said, oh, I never knew that story. She said, how did you guys know that it was Elizabeth, though? How do you know it was her who was talking to me? And they said, well, the guy said, well, when I first came in, he said, I was swimming in the pool in the basement. And I happened to look up out of the water, and I saw Elizabeth Moore floating over the pool. She was looking right at me. She just sort of smiled and just vanished away. And he said, then she's had something else happen to her. And the other lady who came with her said, well, when I came to work one morning, I had a fresh pot of coffee brewed for me. She said, and I looked across the edge of the balcony, and there went Elizabeth Moore just walking away with her back to me. And she just sort of walked through the doors and disappeared. And the other lady who came along with her at lunchtime, she said, yeah, I've seen Elizabeth. She said, when I was working there, I walked up the staircase, and I happened to see her form in front of me walking the stairs. She said, I thought it was just someone else until she disappeared slowly, until all I could see was her feet. And then she disappeared completely. Now, if you go to E. Moore Hall today, which still stands across the street from here, it's the building with the white arches across the front. If Elizabeth Moore likes you, she just might show up and let you know that she's still there supporting education at the university.